Hello, friends. Welcome back to ADHD Unedited, where we talk about real life, real brains, and real strategies to work with our ADHD brains instead of fighting against them. I am Leah, your favorite friendly neighborhood ADHD coach and mindset bestie. Today, we are going to dig into something that sounds really simple, but can actually change your whole week and life and all the things once it clicks. So today we are going to talk about controlling the controllables, which can be really tricky. Like I said, it sounds a bit simple, but it is not always as straightforward as it seems. So we want to actually figure out what is yours to take on and to manage, and what you can lovingly, gently tell to take a hike, right? So ADHD brains like to control all the things a lot of times, or it can kind of go into one of the two all or nothing situations. I want to control everything, or who gives a shit? I'm just going to let it all go. So we've got to look at, when are our brains trying to control everything all at once, all the time? And then what's actually our stuff? Because we tend to care about stuff that's ours, stuff that's other people's, stuff that's happening, outside of us, stuff that's happening on the other side of the world, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. But we really have to sometimes look at what is in my control. If it's in my control, is there a solution? What does that solution look like? And that can be really big scale stuff. That can be really small scale stuff. We can kind of get into that a little bit later, but really realizing what's yours to take on and what's sucking your energy to where you can't show up in these places as well as you would like. So ADHD, obviously helps us show up. Well, for a lot of us, I don't want to generalize, but for a lot of us, it means that we're empathetic, we're creative, we're big-hearted, and it's amazing and incredible, and also really fucking exhausting in the best way, but also in some not so great ways, right? And so the truth here is that you don't have to control everything. Not only do you not have to, you're allowed to not, you can't control everything. It's, not realistic. Not only is it not realistic, it's not sustainable. I had this conversation with a client earlier this week about the difference between being realistic and being sustainable, because a lot of times we will tell ourselves that certain things are realistic, and I guess they technically could be, but maybe they're not sustainable. And that's where things can get really tricky, because that's how we go into burnout and overwhelm and all of these things that end up derailing us and throwing us off track and ultimately making us feel like shit, right? So the sooner we start practicing some of this, oh, I'm allowed to let that go, the more energy, the more peace, the more forward momentum we are going to have. So let's break this down a little bit, and why a shift like this in this mindset piece of things is really crucial for ADHD brains. So 3 things, right? There's more than that, but we'll start there again, in the spirit of breaking things down. So by being able to look at and really kind of lean into what is in our control, it cuts down a lot of that overwhelm. So when your brain is trying to juggle 47 different problems, most of which aren't yours to fix or don't have a solution, you end up frozen. And like I said, the overwhelm is big. And so when you shrink your circle of responsibility down to what's actually yours, you free up brain space to actually get shit done, right? So really looking at these kinds of what's mine, what's a solution, is there a solution? Maybe it's something that just needs to be put on the shelf for a bit until you can think of, is there something I can do about this? Right? I think a lot of us struggle with the anxiety of the future. Well, what about this? What about that? What if they do this? What if they don't do that? Can't really control that. And I've had this conversation a couple times this week as well. Really, at the end of the day, aside from like maybe kind of your children, and you've got to really look at that, you cannot control anybody else but yourself. You cannot, make anyone else give you a certain outcome. You cannot control every situation of how people are going to show up. I show up this way and I expect you to show up this way. Not always possible. So we have to really look at, where's my control in this said situation? Like I said, there's a little bit there that you can look at with your kids, but even then, they're their own people, right? And so you've got to really kind of navigate these different situations with, where am I responsible? What's in my control, right? So second part of this is really looking at what's in your control. It makes momentum a bit more possible. So when you stop spiraling about stuff that you can't change, like whether someone responds to that email in time, or your uncle's political views, or the weather tomorrow. Once you kind of let go of those things that you cannot control, you finally start to move forward with stuff that you can influence. And number 3, allowing this to come in protects your precious energy. And energy is precious. And I know that that can sound a little woo-woo and like get a little eye-rolly, and that's fine. Feel free to roll your eyes. I don't mind. But energy is a limited resource. So you have to look at how you're spending it. And obviously what we want to do is spend it wisely, because otherwise we are stuck in this survival mode of spinning our wheels. And to be quite honest, we deserve better than that. You deserve better than just surviving. Now, survival will be a part of it. I am not saying, like, again, toxic positivity of like, we're just only gonna thrive. That would be amazing. And I do want that to be the rule. I want us thriving to be 80, 90%, but also knowing that there will be some times of survival. There will be days of like, oh my God, what is happening? I am just surviving. And that's okay. But like I said, we want to be in thrival. I don't think that's a word. Thrival mode as much as possible. So what does it actually look like in real life to control the controllables? So when I talk about this, I really want people to look at, when you're feeling stuck, stressed, or spirally, pause and ask yourself, is this actually in my control? If yes, awesome, amazing, love it. Make a move, even if it's tiny, even if it's really small. So is this actually in my control? Yes. Okay, cool. What's the solution? Or what's part of a solution? What's a piece of a solution? If there was a solution, what would it be? Right? So looking at that kind of thing, because looking at what would the solution be, is there a solution, helps us really, okay, I do have control over this. And not in like a scrunched up way. We'll get to that in a second. But excuse me. If it's not in your control, then don't waste your energy on it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve a little bit of thought, a little bit of like, okay, that sucks, or I wish I could change this, all of that. But putting a lot of energy into the spiraling of like, oh God, I don't know, it doesn't do anybody any good. So imagine putting it on a mental bookshelf. You don't have to let go of it forever. Maybe you do. Maybe it ends up, one of those books on the bookshelf that you forget about and then you donate, and it's fine. But put it on a mental shelf, maybe for later, maybe forever. And just so that we are clear, this is not, giving up. It's getting smart. It is energy management, basically. It's not abandonment. I read this quote the other day that I really liked. It was about that like holding on so tight, and it just said, let go, nothing grows in clenched fists. Clenched fists. And I talk about this a lot in my coaching of like people trying to like hold on so tightly, whether it's to a routine, a person, a situation, or whatever. And we kind of, strangle it. We've got clenched fists and nothing can grow there. And so the quote said, let go. And I reposted it and I said, you don't even have to let go. Just ease up a little bit. Just relax your shoulders. Take a breath, let go. The tighter you grip trying to control everything, the less space you have for momentum, for creativity, even just for basic peace. And I'm not like, peace. But yeah, we want peace, right? Like that's part of so many people I talk about, they're like, I just want to feel at peace. And part of that is loosening your grip on things, especially things out of your control. Sometimes the bravest move is to loosen your grip. Breathing, trusting that you'll know what needs your attention and what doesn't. And that kind of leads into another point of when you can get kind of a handle on, all right, that's in my control, it isn't. It really does lead to deeper self-trust. And self-trust is something that a lot of ADHDers struggle with. A lot of us struggle to trust ourselves. And so it's these little micro moments that reinforces self-trust. Okay, I can trust myself that I can let that go for the moment. I can trust myself that I need to put that on the shelf. That's very rarely the conversation that is going on inside your head, but it is reinforcing that trust. And so that's really important. All the things that we can do to kind of build on these foundations like self-trust is really important. So, some real life examples, like maybe you can't control how busy your job is, but you can control setting a 2-minute timer and doing a brain dump to get some clarity. Taking a few inhales, extended exhales, kick in that parasympathetic nervous system so that you're not in fight or flight. You go more into rest and digest. That is in your control. Maybe you can't control how hectic and chaotic your mornings are, but you can control laying out your bag the night before, packing your lunch the night before, laying out your clothes the night before. All of that kind of stuff that the night before takes about 10 minutes. The morning of takes like 25 when we're already stressed and exhausted and, haven't fully woken up and we just don't have the same amount of capacity. So looking at where are things that keep derailing me? Are they in my control? If yes, what's the solution? Maybe you can't control somebody else's shitty mood, but you can control how you protect your energy. So, putting on your headphones, taking a quick walk, silencing or exiting Slack or the chat or whatever it might be. Those are places that a lot of times we have control, not always, obviously. Maybe you can't control how much you wish you could finish today, but you can control picking just one next step or one thing on your kind of to-do list, your to-start list, that kind of thing. And like I said earlier, picking one thing is not settling. It's not being lazy. It's strategy. Because forward is forward even when it is small. And even more so when you can actually control those little steps. So your challenge for this week is to pick one situation that's been draining the life out of you and get really radically honest. Name one thing within that situation that is actually in your control. And then move only on that one thing. Not everything, not like fix the world, just your piece of the pie or just one small piece of that pie, because that's how momentum is built. You get real, you get honest, you get management steps. So one step at a time. You don't need to hold all of it all at once. You don't need to fix all of it all at once. You just need to control the controllables and let the rest go. So remember, you are smart, you are capable, and you're more than likely doing better than you think. So ease up, unclench those fists, and make space for some good stuff. Look at what you can control, look at where the solutions are, get into thrival mode versus survival mode. Thank you guys so much for being here. See you next week. Bye.